All right. Oh my goodness. I don't even know if anybody's here at this point. Hey everybody, Jem Schofield of the C47, and welcome to another episode of Gearbox 2.0. In this episode, it's a live stream. It's late. It's post-mortem NAB 2019, and I'm just going to have a little chat with everybody, or at least talk to nobody, about what happened at the show and sort of my experiences and all of that fun stuff. Some technical difficulties. I've done a plenty of these things in the past, and I am in theory live, but when I'm looking at the watch page here, I'm not seeing anything. So it's a messy day here in Google/YouTube land. Let me do a quick thing. Let's see. There's a few people waiting, but I don't know if they're seeing anything. Yeah. I'm gonna have to give a new link. So what I'm gonna do? How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do this? I gotta figure it out. In the meantime, if you are here on this chat, then please let me know because I am here to talk about stuff. So I am in theory live. Let's see if I can get a watch page. Yeah, I see what the problem is. So it was tagged as, this was tagged as public, but now I'm seeing it tagged as private. So all kinds of crazy things are happening today. I apologize. Please, let me see. Edit. Gonna make this public. Save changes. View on the watch page. And now we should be okay. Let's see if this is all working. Of course, there's no people, but let's see. Let me tweet this out or do something, and we'll see how it all goes. But it looks like at least I have a show going here. All right, so that's a good thing. Looks like I have a chat, and now I am going to very, very quickly go ahead and I'll explain all of this garbage in a few minutes. But I'm just going to basically say I have to go to community and I have to make a post and it's a whole big thing and you have to do all that kind of stuff. So that's all part of the deal here. So let's see, community, live now. Let's see if this works. Live now. And then we'll do this. I'll put a link to the watch page. And I will do that one more time in one more place. And then I'm going to talk to nobody about live now. I am going to talk to nobody about NAB 2019. So let's close that out. Let's do this. Let's, man, what a cluster today. Here we go. I thought it was bad with Ben traveling 30 hours back home. This is far worse, I think. We'll find out from Ben later on Camera and Flask. But let's clean this up just a little bit more so I have a little bit of my own sanity here. And here we go. If you're here and you're part of the chat, hey, what's up? Rimrock Creative Media. Thank you for coming over. I apologize profusely for the problems today. Basically, what I did is I scheduled a live stream for this morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern time. And I did that because it has just been insane in terms of my scheduling coming back from NAB. And that usually happens. It's kind of like a reality distortion field. And then everything just comes crashing down in terms of what the deliverables are for clients and stuff. This mark right here, I think this is from paintball for my son's birthday on Saturday. I definitely did get hit somewhere in this area, even though I had the mask on. It was a lot of fun. And I'm digressing, but there you go. And so I had this all scheduled out. Everything was all set up. And when I went in to start the broadcast, there was no option in the live stream to actually go live. So it was a whole bunch of resetting and rebooting and everything else. So now we have a live stream. It's a new live stream with a new link. The old one wasn't working. We're talking ones and zeros here, girls and boys. So sometimes that stuff happens. So I'm here to do, I don't know, probably about a 10 or 15-minute episode where I'm just going to talk about some of my experiences with NAB. We do have Cameron Flask again today with all three of the amigos, with myself, Ben in questionable shape, coming back from traveling and arriving back home in the Czech Republic, and of course, Caleb Pike. So let me talk a little bit about NAB. Yeah, dang, YouTube is right. So every year I make, as many people do, an annual pilgrimage. And the reason, by the way, I'm doing a live stream is I just haven't had time to shoot an episode and edit an episode. So this is the first time I've done this. But everybody makes an annual pilgrimage, or a lot of people do, to Las Vegas, Nevada in April at some point in time. And they descend upon the Las Vegas Convention Center. But for me, my experience every year with NAB is quite a bit different than most people's. And that's because I actually plan and I teach workshops. So I've been doing that now, I think it's been 16 years. I started off primarily teaching in the convention center. I was teaching post-production, DVD Studio Pro, Motion, Final Cut Pro, Soundtrack Pro, pretty much anything having to do with Final Cut Studio back in the day. And then many things happened, and I started to transition to teaching production around 2009. So timely with 5D Mark II and all of that kind of stuff. So that's what I do. But now I don't even teach at the convention center. I do these off-site workshops. I fly in with my team. This year it was myself, Ken Potts, Ben Barden, and James Kwan, who is a cinematographer and friend based out of Albuquerque. Yeah, sorry you didn't make it out, Rimrock. Maybe next year. And I'm not going to make it to Cine Gear because I'm going to be at my daughter's graduation at her commencement. But there you go. So, so we fly in on Thursday, which next year will be Wednesday because they're shifting the whole NAB back a day. I think you say back a day. And then what we do is we set up the whole next day in a sound stage, or a space. We were at a place called MG Studio this year, and if you watch last week's episode, you can kind of get a sense of what the space looks like. It's humongoloid, and I think we'll do it again there next year. And we just have lens rentals come in. They set up all their sponsored equipment that I work with them on. Manufacturers ship stuff, manufacturers drop off stuff, and that's kind of what Friday's like. Then we go drink a lot of Singha and eat a lot of Thai food at Lotus of Siam. And then all day Saturday and all day Sunday, I teach these full day workshops. Chadwin, I'm bummed you didn't make the meetup either. Oh, you were there. Cool. But you met up with Caleb, which is cool. Yeah. NAB is amazing. And then what I do now is, instead of continuing to teach all the way through Wednesday, I actually go and spend time on the show floor. And I meet up with companies I have relationships with. I see my friends. We go over potential projects. We did Cameron Flask on Wednesday. And then in the evenings, it's generally industry-based events where we're, again, meeting up with other creators and people like that. So I got to see Ryan Connolly for the first time in a long time. I met Gerald Undone. I hung out with Caleb and Ben and a bunch of other people. Phil Holland. Went to the Aputure event, where they generally do something on a Tuesday evening where they reveal some of the stuff that they're then going to show publicly on Wednesday. Like the little MC RGB light, their little smart bulb. more information about the RGB panel and all of that kind of stuff. So really, you know, once we land to the time that we leave, for myself and the people that I work with and do things with, it's pretty much nonstop. There is a social aspect, of course, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about NAB. But it is just a packed schedule. So what really winds up happening for me is the rest of the world disappears during NAB. I try to let clients know as best as possible that I won't have a lot of availability. And then I just jump into it for a Thursday to a Thursday, and then when I get home, uh, you know, the reality of the reality distortion field sets in, and I realize how much I have that is backlogged, how many things have to happen, and then it's generally catching up with family, and then also just 2, 3, 4 days of absolute insanity. I'm still in the insanity right now. And part of that is because I have had a job that was scheduled out in San Francisco. And as of Monday morning, really Friday night, we had to start the process of rescheduling that entire job for the third time. So that's in pretty good shape now. The other live stream is open. What does that mean that I'm going? That's good to know. Let's see. Da, da, da. I'm double streaming. Pretty exciting. Let's see if I can fix that. I'll delete that later on. This will be the live stream that stays. So hopefully I won't muck this up. And thank you very much for the, what, maybe all the other people are there. We should probably tell them. Crap. Dang it. Not easy. YouTube is just not cooperating today. So what's really interesting is it's not even showing me that other event. So it's open, but I can't even close it out. That's crazy. I have one event right now that's showing up. I'm logged into YouTube, into my live streams, and this is just bonkers. I don't even know what to say. I don't know how to get rid of it. This is one of those things where we do live in the matrix. We are in the construct, and I have no control over what the hell is happening here. So I'm not going to spend a lot more time on this. I'm probably just going to continue this live stream. And there we go. This one says 19 people, but on the iPhone it says 2. So weird. Yeah, let me just tell you. This thing is bonkers. All right, well, let's just go with this, everybody. And I'm here for some questions about NAB. We'll be doing another, Cameron Flask later on at 6 p.m. Eastern with the three of us, Caleb, myself, and Ben as well, and we'll talk about the show. But what questions do you have? And then I'm going to start to talk about some stuff that I thought was interesting. Thank you, Bill, for doing that. I don't even see that other one. Everything has disappeared from my other events, and it is just crazy what's happening today. So let's see. Do I have some NAB notes here? NAB. Well, I'll just talk about some of the things that I kind of thought was pretty interesting at the show. It's no secret that I have an affinity for these little doodads here from a company called Spiffy Gear, and they're calling this the Lumi. And basically, there's two versions of these slap wrist, whatever you call them, slap bracelets. One is RGB, and the other one, which I have over here, what's the most underrated in your opinion that's not a lot of people talked about? Oh, I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Time code workflow. What cameras are you using? That's a question there. And this is the the bicolor version. So pretty cool. They get pretty bright overall. I'm pretty impressed because these are designed for video production. So you can lay them flat. They have a magnet. They have a little hook place, and this is called the Lumi. and they're going to be about 50 bucks. So crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, so there you go. That's the Lumis from Spiffy Gear. And I got some questions here. So Old Wave 1, you got to tell me Blackmagic, Pocket Cinema, and the C100. There are some audio-based solutions out there that I haven't really looked into. Is it Tentacle that people are using with DSLRs and mirrorless cameras? If you send me a little email directly through the c47.com/contact, I'll look into that for you and send you some links on some of the stuff that I know people are using. I'm not slating that kind of stuff right now in those workflows. And then when I'm doing multicam, we are jam syncing timecode into those cameras that actually have a timecode port. So what do you think of the new Gemini 1x1? I like it. It's obviously a smaller version of the 1x2. I do really like that the controls now are easier to access. On the Gemini, I love that it's all in one in terms of the yoke, but the controls are seated underneath. And so you kind of have to either rotate the lamp and get to it in terms of the yoke, or you have to bend down, unless, of course, the light is higher than eye level to make adjustments. And some of it has to be memory based. So it looks like a nice fixture. I'm glad that they made it. I think they needed to make that form factor. I'm a lot interested in the RGB panel that Aputure is going to be coming out with sometime this year. It looks like from a price point standpoint, that's a lot of points. That's a third one again. It's going to be somewhere around $1,600 to $1,700 US. So that's going to be, I think, pretty killer. 360 grad. What's up with this? I don't understand what the 3 Plus is. But are you in a witness protection program right now? Something's happening here. I don't know what's going on. So welcome to the live stream. Thanks for people for showing up and dealing with the insanity of this. So Gemini 1x1, there you go. What else we got here? What's the most underrated in your opinion that not a lot of people talked about? You know, from a lighting standpoint, one of the things that's really interesting is that Hive is clearly making a transition from plasma to LED. They started with the 100, then they came out with the 200C, then they came out with the 50, they announced the 25, but they had a prototype, which I think was being held together by rubber bands and bongo ties. Those are rubber bands, just better versions, gaff tape, and maybe some Velcro. Not really. It actually looked pretty polished. And it is a 575 watt LED solution. And it is in a small body. So I'm kind of excited about that. I just think it's a little too early to really talk about it too much. So I would say that. Yeah, we're definitely in an alternate universe between 360 grad and he's using the company channels thing. He's going to behave himself today, at least for this, maybe not for Cameron Flask. Dustin asks, did Canon ever address the whole EOS R RAW thing? As suspected, absolutely not. They did not. There was no mention of it. In fact, I heard some people went over to the booth and it just kind of got, whatever. Can I tell us the cost for a trip like this for NAB? I didn't look at the Godex. Sorry. 3 Plus 360 grad. Nobody's drinking anything right now, Joe. Cameron Flask is at 6 p.m. If I'm drinking at 9 to 9:30 a.m. in the morning, then there's something seriously wrong with me. That would mean that I have to admit that there's something wrong, and there isn't. So thank you. Good afternoon, Ben Barden. What the heck? Are you on an airplane? What is going on here? We really are in a reality distortion field. Pre-game. I'm not pre-gaming at 9:30 in the morning, Joe. What are you drinking? Okay, so could you tell us the cost for a trip, Bill asked like this? Well, it really depends. I mean, I actually go to NAB as an educator, so my flights are being covered in my hotel. but that's kind of part of my fee for what I'm doing. I'm going to talk about the slide pod in a minute. If you book well in advance, there are definitely hotels that you can get during NAB time, especially through NAB and just searching around, that aren't too expensive. Don't expect to spend $59 a night, but if you want to stay on the strip, you can definitely be in that probably around $150 a night price point if you plan ahead. Flight is your flight, so don't book less than 2 weeks before the show. And then, you know, how you eat at the show determines a lot. You can get a monorail pass for a week, and that might cost you whatever it's going to cost, $100 or less. And Joe's drinking Snapple, Diet Snapple, that is. Your battle with Adobe still continues with no spell check in Premiere Pro. Well, my battle with Final Cut continues because I still don't have a proper mixer and automation. So here we are both sitting here doing that. Good afternoon, Ben Barden, Photography and Films. I am just amazed that you are here. I'm glad that you are home safely, which I guess is what that is. Do I think that slide pod that Moses showed might be a good solution for a slider in run and gun situations? I think it might be. Word is out that it could be a good solution. I don't know if that even made sense. But both Ben and myself, actually Ben, myself, and Caleb, and a lot of other people looked at it, and it looks very intriguing, especially for mirrorless style cameras. And Old Wave 1 is asking about XT3 firmware, and I do, in fact, as of this morning, psychotically, have version 3.0 on there, but I have not tried some of the AF features. Again, I just want to mention this thing right here. I think this is the byproduct of playing paintball with my son, though whatever that is has now apparently made me into a 14-year-old teenage boy because I'm getting a zit here, and that doesn't make any sense. If you have I have to be careful, even though it's 3 plus, not 360 grad. If you have a Bear Grill knife, you can sleep in the desert. That's true. You could. The slider looks cool. Yeah. And I like the fact that it works, you know, for booming shots and then also for sliding shots. So I think for an XT3 or for an EOS R and things like that, I think it looks pretty cool. Thoughts on the UMP-G2? I'm blank right now. What is that? Without me having to Google that, let me know. What else do we have? Oh, Ben's on a train. He's not home yet, but he's traveling. My favorite way to travel, by the way. Still no unicorn sighting. No Sony A7S III. Nope, absolutely not. Let's see. Let's see what else we got here. And then my phone's blowing up again because that's what's been happening. SMALLHD Cine 7. So I actually, okay, good. Joe, I'm clear on what you're talking about now, Ursa Mini Pro G2. So I'll give you some thoughts on that in a second. Let's just see. Live streaming. I have to let my better half know that. Let's say stuff for soup. One more cold day here before it gets warmer. So here we go. So let's see. SMALLHD Cine 7. So here's my thoughts on the SMALLHD Cine 7. It is really awful to say game changer. Really interesting because we're starting to see camera control from monitors that are not from the manufacturers. And I think that that's the big story. The fact that the first one out of the gate that they're communicating with is ARRI is even a bigger deal. But I'm very excited about that. I'm also excited about the fact that it looks like monitor manufacturers, based on the conversations that I have been having with them or had with them at NAB, are understanding that the monitoring solutions are far behind what the cameras are capturing. So I think, what's going on here? Okay. I think that Travis, welcome. Glad you made it to this version of the live show because of the cluster that happened today. I think that our monitors are going to get much better. Now, the new Shogun 7, I haven't tried it yet. I've seen it at an ATOMOS event. looks like they're starting to do some things where we're going to see more dynamic range out of our displays at a more affordable price point. And we are definitely seeing manufacturers move towards P3 as a standard. And then hopefully we start to push closer to 2020 in terms of our color gamut. Hey, Tommy. Thanks for coming by. Nice meeting you at NAB. So, too bad we didn't see the rumored C300 Mark III. Not happening right now. Any thoughts on the continued updates to the FS7 ecosystem versus any firmware updates to the C200? Who gets a new camera update in that price range first, Canon or Sony? So, Joe, I haven't forgotten about you. So, here's my thought. We are we're kind of at a point right now where there's still, in my opinion, wish lists in terms of what we'd like to see added to our favorite cameras, whether that's a C300 Mark II, C200, FS7 II, an EVA 1, cameras like that. But in reality, at this point in time, we're starting to see things settle a little bit. It doesn't mean we're not going to see new cameras. We're absolutely going to see new cameras. I think potentially we'll see an FS7 successor before we see a C300 successor. I might be wrong about that. We'll see how this year pans out and what happens as we start to get closer to the fall/autumn and IBC. I don't know of any cameras specifically in that space, but I will say that we're in a good place right now overall in terms of what our options are. And we've also seen a pretty big evolution in terms of what's happened in the mirrorless camera world with not only Super 35 and full frame, but also moving towards 10-bit 422, and even in some cases, in Nikon's case, eventually the ability to do ProRes RAW. And I think Blackmagic RAW is going to be pretty interesting long term, despite some of the things that we've seen online and interviews that have happened at NAB. So, and in that mix, we'll go back to Joe, Ursa Mini Pro, G2. I haven't tried the camera yet. I'm going to try to get my hands on it. I'm really interested in DaVinci Resolve 16. I love this new cut page that they've created in terms of fast, rapid editing, because that's one of the reasons I'm drawn to Final Cut as a solution. Is it's so quick in terms of the engine and just sort of banging stuff out. But of course, Resolve is sort of this complete ecosystem. And then you couple that cut page together with, just working with Blackmagic RAW. I think that's going to be pretty interesting. So this new Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K G2 is supposed to have a new sensor in it. It's supposed to have an evolved color science. And color science has always been my big problem with Blackmagic cameras, because it just gets really funky. You'll settle in to a certain lighting condition. You'll set the camera up in terms of white balance and everything is A-okay. And then you'll change those lighting conditions and you'll switch it over to a different white balance. And what you're getting out of the camera is completely, in my opinion, unpredictable. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have all of the data that you need to shape that image in post-production. But one of the reasons that I'm drawn to cameras like ARRI's Alexa cameras, Canon's, Cinema Series, EOS cameras, is that their color science and also the Fujifilm is, sorry about the focus there, guys. I haven't looked at the new focus features on the new firmware. Is the color science is just pretty great right out of camera. And that means when you are banging out content on a regular basis, it is much, much easier to do. So I'm excited to try that new Ursa Mini Pro. I think that, in the under $10,000 price range, man, if they could get an autofocus system in there, ridiculous. But it is the one camera that really comes out of the box that can be shoulder mounted. You get the EVF with that and that shoulder mount kit, and it's about $7,500, and I think you're in great shape. So let's see. Rimrock. SMALLHD Teradek has a pretty sweet solution now for wireless monitoring, lens control with overlays, but they need a wireless lens motor. They still have a separate motor driver box. Yeah, I think we'll see where it goes with that. They're part of Creative Solutions. I'm interested to see where Wooden Camera goes and whether or not there's more synergy between those two companies, or all three of those companies, basically, because I think if we're going to get the motors and we're going to get the electronics, it would make sense that that comes from Wooden Camera. They already make follow focus systems. They're already making the A box, which has some electronics in it. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I did start a closer relationship with Wooden Camera at the show, so we'll see how that goes in the future. How do you think, by the way, Jem, do you think Sony has abandoned their F555 line and go all Venice since it has an interchangeable CMOS block? I don't know. I don't know what's happening with that F series. You know, it was a great and still is a great camera system. Anything that is UHD 4K at least, and that can do DCI 4K preferably, is at this point in time a valid camera system, and you shouldn't, you know, pass up looking at some of those as inexpensive options. What you have to really look at is what's that sensor capable of, what's the dynamic range, what's the color gamut, what are the shortcomings of that. So you have an FS700 UHD 4K, fine, great, but is there something about that sensor that is lacking? Maybe. Which is why you would maybe look at an FS7 or an FS7 II. Why the FS7 II over the FS7? Primarily, in my opinion, because of the variable ND feature, which was originally introduced in the FS5, and I think is really killer, and I hope we see more of that stuff in the future. And for your money right now, and man, I'm hoping for a price drop at some point. The C300 Mark II, being 4+ years old, is still a rockin' 4K camera system. It's pretty amazing what that thing is capable of. Its really only downside is off-speed recording or lack thereof. But if you're just looking for a camera system for documentary, for corporate, and things like that, and you don't need that off-speed overcrank functionality, C300 Mark II is still amaze balls. Resolve plus the library of third-party effects training that Final have would be killer. Yeah. So it's really the ecosystem that supports Resolve is where it falls down, not in terms of being a suite of products, but if you look at Creative Cloud and you look at Final Cut, it's all of the third-party solutions that tie into those apps that really make a lot of our work, I don't know, more workable. What do we got? Nice to see you there. You too, Scott. Should I buy an expensive camera when in 6 months it'll be out of date? Doesn't renting make more sense? Can we change clients' perspective on this? Well, that's really dependent upon the type of work you're doing. There are a lot of people who are in production that are doing so much production on a regular basis that it makes sense to be an owner operator or make that investment into your camera system. And expensive is relative to your viewpoint in terms of what it is that you're doing. So is an ARRI Alexa expensive to you? You know, or is a C300 Mark II expensive to you? And that's really, that's part of what you have to determine when it comes to that decision. Some people, an XT3 is expensive. And so it's a hard question to really answer. You absolutely rent when you're looking for something very specific out of a camera system. So for instance, if you're really looking for the greatest latitude, how much you can push and pull your image, no question in my mind that right now, one of, if not the best camera to do that with is an ARRI Alexa or any of their cameras that use that sensor, including the Amira. If you're looking for a camera, you know, that is a workhorse and you also need a good AF system, then it's C300 Mark II or C200. If you're looking for an all-arounder and AF is not the driving force, then the FS2 may be a great choice, or even possibly this Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K G2 camera. And then, of course, there's the EVA 1, which is lacking, I would say, in terms of build quality and, of course, the screen that it comes with. But the fact that you can capture 5.7K, high data rate, and really nice image, again, not relying on the AF system, I think it's pretty amazing. So let's see. Check prices on used F5 lately. No, but I mean, I'm sure they're great. I mean, gee, you can get an F3 for that's that's a 1080 camera, but you can get that for a song. What do I think about future evolution on gimbals? So I think that one of the most interesting things that I saw was from Steadicam, and they've come up with an entire solution for gimbals like the Ronin S. And the price point is exactly where it should be. You're getting a vest, you're getting an arm, and you're basically treating your Ronin S as your sled. And the whole solution, not including the Ronin S, is going to be under $1,000 US. So what you're doing is you're getting that fourth axis, because you have 4 axes that you're dealing with, and the gimbals motors are dealing with 3 of those. But the reason the Steadicam is needed is for that axis. So I think that I personally think that that solution is really interesting to me, because what I can do is I can take a Ronin S, and I could even put a C200 on there because the motors are strong enough, and then I can get that, pardon me, I can get that vest, and I can handle that access, and Bob's your uncle. Wondering what your thoughts are on new camera systems like Kinfinity and Zcam, their long-term support, and that they're a good purchase over Blackmagic Design's offering. I don't know who this Jim guy is, but I'm just playing. So I think that it's important that those cameras and those companies are in the market. Zcam is more interesting to me at this point in time. I've heard that they have or are going to have US distribution, and I think it all has to do with how they set themselves up as a company. In my opinion, you take a look at a company like Aputure that is clearly a Chinese company, but they are also very much an American company. And I think that if you want to make inroads into the broad market as a whole, as opposed to being country specific, that you need to take cue from them, if that's the right way to say that. And look, there can only be one Ted Sim. Let's just be honest about it. And he's amazing at what he does and what he's done for that company and what he continues to do. But I think that if you want to build a brand and you want brand loyalty nowadays, you need to be in it more so from Aputure's standpoint than, let's say, from a Convergent Design or a Kinfinity standpoint, where you're perceived more as an engineering company, an engineering solution, but you have to create community and you have to create some buzz to a certain degree. And at the point in time that we are now, as opposed to a few years ago, Kinfinity is still interesting, but it's not as exciting because we have the ability to buy a camera system from a much larger company and get raw recording, and we have the perceived support of that bigger company. Now, I'm not saying that Blackmagic, excuse me, is acting like a camera company per se. They make, manufacture, sell, distribute, and support their camera systems, but not in the same way that a company like ARRI or Canon or Sony does. So you have to think about that from that reality. So let's see. Wondering your thoughts. Yeah, that's good. Boom, boom, boom. Future evolution. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are some other solutions out there. I just think that 3 plus 360 grad that that Steadicam tends to do it right. And again, it's that idea of having that support from a company and having that contact with a company. And I personally weigh pluses and minuses in regards to that. Do I get an EASYRIG, which I have an EASYRIG Mini and I bought one used, or do I go with one of the third-party solutions where I don't really have any connection with the company? I can't get a hold of somebody. It might work well, but one day if it breaks, I don't know who I go to. So I think that also has something to do with it overall. What else we got? An EasyRig did come out with a new solution, which looks pretty cool for operators. So what else? We got yeah, Zcam looks good. What else do we have for other things? Well, yeah, this is a little thing here, and I don't think it's brand new to the show, but monopod solutions are always interesting to me. This is a head from Sarai. I don't know how you say their name. I've been using their monopods for a long time. This is the VA5. And this little tiny head here is really interesting to me. So this is something that I'm, using now for mirrorless because I like that. I don't know what happened here. I did not pack this up, but okay, well, we'll fix that later. And this is their monopod solution, and it's very, very nicely designed. Locking, this all comes off, packs really small. This is a carbon fiber. This is the big boy here, but I'm going to be getting a smaller version of this to show everybody soon. So you guys can check that out. But yeah, I think that they're making some really, really nice solutions for mirrorless. And I'm going to be getting this smaller monopod to show you guys with this particular VA5 head, which is a panning and tilting head and very, very small. It's Arca Swiss, which I really like. Where's my, there we go, boom. And we'll talk more about that in the future. Yes, Bill, it is the best standing monopod on the market, in my opinion, and is very, I don't know what you say. It's one of those days. Controllable. You can set it up any way you want. You can tilt it from the base. You can tilt it from your fluid head and all of that good stuff. Steadicam Air is really nice too. The big thing on there is just this pneumatic change of height, which I like very much. But I would say that this stuff that they're making is also really, really cool. This is not new to the show, but there's a company called Cameo, which is products that are essentially designed by the team at AbelCine. And this is a grip unit that you can use with multiple different camera systems. So it has a LAN control, has other connections for other cameras. And you can set this up in different ways. This right now has an ARRI rosette attachment, which we were using on the FS5 II, but that just comes off. And then you just have a quarter 20. We were using this on a ZEISS job that will be dropping soon. And we're using it actually with an A7 III right on top of there. So I like the stuff that Cameo's making. I'm actually using that little swivel mount as well with the focus monitors. And I take a look. They're not the least expensive solutions on the market, but they're incredibly well engineered, well designed. And speaking of solutions on the market when it comes to little things, we went over to SMALLHD and checked out their stuff. And man, along with Aputure, they are killing it. Now, the thing that they're missing at SMALLHD is they're missing a TED. Everybody's missing a TED. Come on, let's be honest. But there's still somehow, because of their program where you can help co-design products and they do these insane pre-sales on what they're doing, they are creating some really, really great solutions for the market in terms of little grip equipment. And I mean, I'm using, along with a lot of people that I work with who are doing their stuff all of the time. So really cool. CineMatch, very interesting. So Film Convert, company out of New Zealand, they have been making film stock / emulations for post-production for a long time. And a couple of years ago, they started to talk about a solution. I don't want to call it poor man's ACES. Basically what happens is, as a company, what they do is they research different sensors. You have to. And based on those sensors and the gamma and gamut, so your dynamic range and your color capture settings of your camera system, you can plug that in very much the same way you do when you're applying a LUT, and you can apply a film stock. You could, in some ways, say that they're very similar in terms of concept. So even if you use Koji Advanced, for instance, you put in your camera settings, and then you can apply Kodak film stocks. So that's kind of what they're doing at Film Convert. But what they're now going to be doing is they're going to be taking that data or database of information related to sensors and camera systems and all that stuff, and they're going to create a camera matching system. And it was a little too early, a little pre-ready for prime time a couple of years ago, but it looks like they've got it licked now. And what you're going to be able to do is say, I'm going to go shoot a job, and I'm shooting on a C200, and I'm shooting in Canon Log 3, and I'm shooting in Cinema Gamut. And then I'm going to be shooting on a Fuji X-T3, and I'm shooting in F-Log, which is their wide gamut and their higher dynamic range. Same shoot, A/B camera situation. You feed that information into CineMatch, put in how your cameras were set up, and boom, in theory, you are going to be all matched up. So I think that's going to be pretty dang interesting. I haven't actually used it yet. Originally, Calf Media. Originally I was going to do a demo, but it looks like it's going to roll out for Premiere first, and then Final Cut, and then other systems. And they're still trying to decide what the first set of cameras are that they're going to be supporting. Sorry about the slight overexposure here. I have a lot of sun coming through those clouds, and I'm not about to go and start making camera changes. So yes, Atomos ditched the showgirls, and they went with some ramps and skateboarders and bikes and all kinds of other stuff. But yeah, it was pretty good. Fun fact: Tilta, SmallRig, Aputure, DJI, FS headquarters are all located in the same city. Yes, they are. I don't know how you say it properly. Shenzhen is how I say it. It's probably pronounced totally differently than that. But many, many, many companies are in that city, and for good reason, because it was set up as an economic growth center in China, and runs by different rules and regulations than other manufacturing hubs and centers, even in China. And the fact is that the speed in which things can be prototyped and come to market is insane. It's essentially a city where you don't have issues related to patents and things like that. It's a weird place. There's some interesting documentaries on Shenzhen that I, would encourage you to check out. And it has had in terms of the electronics world, I mean, our industry, but the electronics world in general, it has had an enormous impact on our daily lives in terms of the technology that I wasn't planning a live stream. I don't know who Jen is. I know who Jem is. I'm just playing with you. I wasn't planning a live stream, but I'm doing this because I didn't have time to shoot and edit an episode of Gearbox. So this is Gearbox for this week. So thoughts on the DSC RX02, which is this tiny little Sony camera, which actually now has a flip-up screen. I think it's interesting. I don't know, Scott. We're in tough times here because we have so many great camera systems. So the question is, when you go into an action camera, how much is that going to play into the content that you're creating? And how much are those additional features going to make your life easier in terms of the content that you're creating? So if you're in a GoPro Hero 7 Black and you're happy with their stabilization system and everything else that's going on, why would you go into the Sony? Oh, shut up. So, oh, I have a call coming up. Maybe that means I have to actually start winding this down. I thought this was going to be 15 minutes long. What's your take on what Aputure is doing? Well, look, they're killing it. And this operating system that they're coming out with, it's not really operating system, it's an app ecosystem, is pretty fantastic if it works the way they intend it to. And generally, they have a pretty good track record. I think they are the company to watch. I don't know if they're the ones to beat. They might be. There's always going to be certain companies in the lighting industry that are going to have their space in the market, and they will carve that out. So we clearly know that Aputure is not interested in flexible LED mats, as far as we can tell, and they're going for different form factors when it comes to that. They're not necessarily going to be the company that replaces ARRI and SkyPanel, which is at the moment the most advanced, I would say, lighting solution in terms of feature sets, app, and everything else. But they are going to really kill it in the space that they're in now, which is owner-operator, but moving towards better build quality, which they're doing already with the 120D2, with the 300D2. And these are starting to become lights that we should really be considering in terms of build quality, like a rental, piece of equipment. So I'm going to wrap this up with a couple more questions. Did you see anything that makes you want to upgrade your current camera setup? Nope, not at the moment. Happy to say, except for an Alexa Mini LF, but I'm not buying that anytime soon. So yes, I did see something. I mean, I would be happy to own an Alexa Mini Super 35mm camera, but we'll see. Maybe that'll happen one of these days. Checked out EOS R with the Ninja 5, which unlocks 10-bit. Is Canon log sucky, making the Ninja a must-have with the R? Not necessarily. I mean, they're all getting pretty good. And, log is different than color gamut. The R has a lot of capabilities. Yes, let's hope the Alexa Mini prices come down. I've already talked about the Z-Cam and the Kinfinity a little bit earlier on. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go into that right now, but it's a little earlier in the stream. I think, external recorders for me are not preferable in most situations, but if you really need to eke out, higher, color sampling or bit depth, then you need to consider it depending on what you're doing. I don't know if Sharp is a player yet. This consumer camera hasn't been fully priced. News Shooter, if you want to go check it out, got their hands on the camera at NAB, so they have their thoughts on it. I have no thoughts on it yet. To me, it's more pixels, and I don't need more pixels at the moment. More pixels make sense for VR. More pixels make sense for, very large displays. I did see again, and I originally saw them at Interbe 2.5 years ago, some 8K displays. And man, if you combine high nit, great contrast ratio, and you also combine the right kind of footage, and contrast ratio, deep blacks is a big part of it, then I will say that the experience on a large enough display, if you are in person looking at footage that's shot in 8K, is almost a 3D experience. And that's the thing that I noticed at Interbe when I saw it the first time, and I noticed it again at NAB. So I think that there are installation type solutions where you go into a space and you have an 8K screen, that the difference between 4K and 8K will become apparent. It's not on my roadmap right now in terms of acquisition, unless a project came around that related to, again, VR, where you're mapping an image into essentially a sphere, or you are doing large scale installation or large scale displays. Yeah, I wish more pixels equated to more money. That's just not the way it works. All right, so we've gone over an hour. I really appreciate it. I did not expect to have this many people on the live stream today because it was not planned. And just remember that a little bit later on, in 8 hours from now, we will be doing, no, 8 hours, 5 hours from now, 5 hours from now, we will be doing our weekly Cameron Flask. That will be with myself. It will be with Ben Barden and, of course, the golden child, Caleb Pike from DSLR Video Shooter on my channel, 6 p.m. Eastern. And we will be talking about and continuing to talk about NAB. And the conversation will be continuing to answer questions. And you'll be getting all three of our perspective. Because last week's episode was just sort of like some of the stuff we saw. This is more a conversation about all that. And we'll talk to you guys later on. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll try to fix whatever these other live streams that are going. I don't know how to do that because I can't see them. It's a mess. I'll see you guys next time on Gearbox.